Good morning. Today is day 22 for my personal self-improvement challenge, and today I'll be giving up video games. And a little more than video games, I'll be giving up, I think, basically kind of board games as well. Any kind of game that doesn't have a specific use or purpose. And again, nothing wrong with games in recreational time, but for me, I have, being 33, I've played plenty of games, I've done plenty of fun things for a really long time, and so I'm just going to pretend for a little bit that I've used up all my game credits for a little while so that I can stay focused. And this doesn't necessarily mean no fun, because there's a lot of things that games give me that other things can give me as well. So let's just go over this a little bit. Why I'm giving up video games and games in general for the next foreseeable future is, first of all, when it comes to video games, there's a lot of propaganda in there. There's a lot of, you see a lot of conquest, violence, archetypical scenarios, survival scenes happening in these games as a background kind of parentheses, or what do you call that when it's like the premise, so just these kind of accepted beliefs, and there's not really many that challenge the status quo or the things that are really going wrong, and there's not many that develop self-critical thinking. Well, maybe there is and I just haven't seen them, but either way, it's there's a lot of propaganda. There's a lot of time wasting. It's something you get really good at a pinball machine, and when you're done, you might have the highest score. You might be able to outbeat anybody anywhere, and unless you're playing for money, there's not really any real world benefits. It's not a very transferable skill to be good at video games, although they are saying that hand-eye coordination increases. So there's a little bit, but for the amount of time that goes into it, I can't really see it being justified. And the other thing that it does is, of course, when it comes back to this whole dopamine thing, it's a false achievement. When you go out and you slay the beast in the game, you have this sense of achievement that your body didn't really earn. So you're co-opting your internalized reward system, which gives you a false sense of achievement. And you're left again with a skill that is only useful in a very narrow time and place. So I've been thinking about it when it comes to sports, board games, video games, games in general. There are a couple things that they can do really nicely, and that is they're useful for role-playing scenarios. What would you do in this scenario? One of the best ways to prepare for something is to try and trick your brain into experiencing it. So that can be a good thing, but there are lots of ways in which you can get that out in the real world. So like problem solving, things like that. I could develop a hobby or a particular interest. So learning how to get into carpentry, small woodworking, or small engine mechanics. There's a whole bunch of problem solving and reward systems. If I go out and buy that part or I fix that thing, then I've achieved something. So it has a real world value, both in I have a useful skill, I'm developing a knowledge base that will help me in the real world, and I'll have a physical result of like an engine working or something like that. So, but video games I can give up completely, but role-playing games might be useful. It's a way to bring people together. If there's a really good intention in the game, I could see that being useful. So I'm not going to completely write it out. Sports, there's a lot of health benefits to being physically active. It's nice to develop your warrior edge by pushing through and playing a component of both cooperation with your teammates and competition versus the other team, and those are really nice things to work with. But there are other forms of games that one could play, like Tag in the Woods, or I always liked imagining and making up rules and making up games, because games are just a whole set of rules. Like the voting system is a game. It's just a set of rules, and everyone's playing it, and they're playing it so well, and that no one was told. You know, it's like, imagine if you raised kids telling them you have to play Monopoly, you have to play it, and you have to whether there's no difference. It's one's a little more complicated and more people are playing it, but it's just people and words. That's all it is. We could, instead of voting in the Green Party, if you really want to see radical left change, you could write your own constitution. You could write a whole body of work, complicated, and talking about how municipalities work with provincial, and I'm getting a little off topic, but it's just people using words. So I've always enjoyed creating rules to limit your experience, so that you can experience something in a tangent way. So what I'm going to replace all this stuff with is some hobbies. We have a workshop here that's getting cleaned up, so I'll be spending more time in there. I have a card game for role playing that I want to get into development, and basically just be more productive and start putting on events that brings people together, that allows them to experience different forms of consciousness by setting up certain rules for the evening, or guidelines or protocols. So I'll just say that a lot of these things that I'm replacing my vices with, I'm not really having a lot of time for them. So what I've started to write up for myself, which I don't have yet, is a weekly schedule and a monthly schedule. This is different from having an agenda of like, this is coming up, but actually having like one day of the week where I do my letter writing, and say 1 or 2 days in the month where I do fasting. So I'm going to start having and texturize my time by having things that I regularly do daily, weekly, and monthly. So that's how I'm planning on fitting all this stuff in, and I have about another week on my job, and I'll have a lot more free time to start doing these things. So that's today, day 22. Games and video games. Getting more disciplined, focusing on the things that I need to be doing, and not wasting any more time. Again, looking for longer, more rewarding uses of my brain and my body. So again, nothing necessarily wrong with video games or board games or sports, but I think that for myself, I've done enough of it. I want to do something else. I want to be more constructive. I want to make sure that everything I do has a multi-stacked purposes that will benefit me in the future. So that's why I'm doing this, and yeah, that's it. Well, I got to get off to work. It's a beautiful day. Hope you're all well. Enjoy the sun. Enjoy the spring, and we'll see you tomorrow. All right, bye now.